Good morning for Thursday, June 1st, 2017. Audible presents the New York Times Audio Digest. Here's what's making news on the front page. Bombing in Kabul kills more than 80 people. Trump weighs reviving curbs on Cuba trips. And a news analysis, U.S. a culprit for warming, cools on a pact. In today's national headlines, White House lawyers cringe over Twitter use. In police trials, finding the right type of juror, and Ohio sues drug makers saying they aided opioid crisis. In this morning's business headlines, Express Scripts sues maker of overdose drug. Australia's property boom makes publisher a target, and Megyn Kelly makes her debut as pillar of NBC's plans. There will be more business stories, more national and world news, a roundup from the sports page, and New York Times columnist Gail Collins. Now, as selected by the editors of the New York Times, here are the stories on today's front page. The top stories written from Kabul. Bombing kills more than 80 in Afghanistan. A truck bomb devastated a central area of Kabul near the presidential palace and foreign embassies on Wednesday, one of the deadliest strikes in the long Afghan war. In one moment, more than 80 lives ended and hundreds of people were wounded in the heart of a city defined by checkpoints and the densest concentration of Afghan and international forces. President Ashraf Ghani called it a crime against humanity. The bombing happened just as the United States is weighing sending more troops to try to slow or reverse government losses to the Taliban insurgency. The attack demonstrates a complete disregard for civilians and reveals the barbaric nature of the enemy faced by the Afghan people. General John Nicholson, the commander of American and NATO forces in Afghanistan, said in a statement. He applauded the Afghan security forces for having prevented the truck from entering the green zone, but Kabul's vulnerability to such an attack spoke volumes to the frustrations of stabilizing the country despite 15 years of military intervention to thwart the Taliban, coupled with hundreds of billions of dollars in foreign aid. Security has steadily worsened since 2014 and the end of the main NATO combat mission, which at its peak featured more than 100,000 American troops and tens of thousands more from alliance partners like Britain. The current international force in Afghanistan numbers about 13,000. About 8,400 of them are mostly American, tasked with training and advising the Afghan forces. The Trump administration and military commanders are debating whether to send up to 5,000 more troops to stem the government's losses. Although the main Taliban spokesman claimed the group had nothing to do with the Kabul bomb, the Afghan intelligence agency, the National Directorate of Security, blamed the Haqqani wing of the group. Over the years, the Haqqanis have made an industry of large-scale attacks on the capital, and the militant cell has become integrated in the central leadership of the Taliban. Here's the second front-page story. Trump weighs reviving curbs on Cuba trips. Reported by Julie Hirschfeld Davis from Washington. President Trump is considering reversing major pieces of the Obama administration's opening with Cuba and reinstating limits on travel and commerce, citing human rights abuses by the Castro government as justification for a more punitive approach. Trump wants to announce the changes in Miami as early as this month, according to aides who spoke anonymously. Clamping down on engagement with Cuba would be a high-profile way for Trump to showcase a stark break with his predecessor and to fulfill a pledge to a crucial constituency that disproportionately supported him. It would also enable Trump to reward the loyalty of Cuban-American lawmakers who have been agitating for a harder line. But as the White House has sought to formulate a series of steps for Trump to announce, a split has emerged over rolling back a policy that many senior officials privately agree has been an improvement on the Cold War dynamic that shaped relations with Cuba in the past. In addition to the revival of diplomatic relations for the first time in a half-century and liberalized rules for trade, travel, and commerce, the new approach has paved the way for cooperation in intelligence sharing, drug interdiction, scientific research, and a host of other areas. A lot of the bureaucracy has been resisting a complete rollback of Obama's policy, said Christopher Sabatini, an executive director of Global Americans, a research organization. Trump is the art of the deal guy, and there's no deal to be had here if they reverse the entire policy. Trump, according to people close to the discussions, is also considering tightening restrictions on Americans traveling to Cuba that were eased last year. The new policy allows Americans who are making educational or cultural trips to Cuba to initiate their own travel there without special permission. Next on the front page, it's a news analysis written by Justin Gillis. U.S. A culprit for warming cools on a pact. The United States, with its love of big cars, big houses, and blasting air conditioners, has contributed more than any other country to the atmospheric carbon dioxide that's scorching the planet. In cumulative terms, we certainly own this problem more than anybody else does, said